Hello and welcome. This is a continuation of our networking series. In this video, I'm going to show you how to configure TACACS Plus to access a Cisco router. I have a admin, NOC admin sitting here. He has connectivity all the way to that router, and the TACACS server is hosted here. I need to configure the TACACS first, make sure it is reachable to this router as well as the users. When we have that connectivity, then we create a database of users on this server. Then we use those users to access and manage the router. So first of all, let us configure the TACACS Plus. Let's give it a user an IP address. So we have VLAN 10 there, VLAN 3, and I will give it 201 here, and it's /24. There's a default gateway .1, and there is a DNS server 20.1.100 over there, 20.1.1.100. So that is now available. The second thing to do is enable the TACACS Plus services. So we have to enable the service first, and then choose TACACS. The default in this simulation is Radius. So the user or the client that we need to authenticate from here is that router over there. And that router has got an interface 192.168.21.2, or it has 40.1.1.1. So we can use either one. Let's use the WAN link 192.168. So we call it router 3. Router 3, and its IP is 192.168.21.2, and if you hover over, you can see its IP. Then the secret key between this server and the client, which is the router, is going to be Cisco. Then we add, and then we provide the users. Let's say admin 1, and we give a password for that, and then we add. Then we create another user, admin 2, and then we provide his password, and then we add. Here you create the username. Maybe a user must change the first login. That's how you do a real environment. This simulation just want to show you a basic username and password, and that's now all done. But before we set, can we make sure the router actually can reach that server? So let's ping. So enable ping 10.3.3.201. That was the IP we gave. First of all, we make sure the connectivity. If you have any firewall between this router and that server, you need to make sure you allow those ports, but we don't have any firewalls here. And now we go to the router and configure the TACACS configuration. So the first thing to do, let's go to config T. Always make sure you have a backup login, and let's call it a username, super user, and let's give it a password. That's good. Second thing is to enable the AAA authentication. So we say AAA new model. When we do that, then we say this user must use the authentication from TACACS. So today, to do that, before we enable TACACS, you first need to run AAA authentication, and then provide login default. So okay, why do we say default? You need to understand. You can either name it or you use the default list. So you say default, and then provide. You're going to provide local or a server like TACACS or Radius. First start with group, and then provide which server type. Is it Radius or TACACS? So this time we're doing TACACS Plus. And not only that, if TACACS Plus doesn't work, then we need local user, the one we created as a super user. When you complete that, now you tell how to authenticate. We have how to authenticate. Use the TACACS local, and the AA model or the authentication is enabled. We have a backup user. Next thing to do is provide the destination IP where the TACACS is. So we call it TACACS server, and then host. The IP was 10.3.3.201. That's the IP. Then the TACACS Plus, we created a key. So we provide the key, which we configured on the router. So it's a code the router and the server can communicate and then authenticate each other. So, and we save that. Okay, so if I now try to log in and say login, it takes me to the login admin 1. And then if I provide the password, then I go to enable. Okay, so that you can see we have the TACACS server and it's configured, but the line console, you have to add the command to provide that when users are trying to log in, they have to be pushed to go to the TACACS. This one, you're already connected to the console, but you have to add that configuration and say login when I'm trying to log in to the console, or maybe line console first, console 0, and then you say when you're logging in, you use the authentication, which is the default. Okay, if you don't add that, it took, you've seen when we tested, it took, it's the default. Then end. Okay, Alt Shift 6 if you get stuck with that translation, and then I can save. If I want to connect from a remote user like the NOC admin over there, then I need to create the SSH or Telnet, whatever. Telnet won't be the safe way to connect, of course SSH, but that will need to create certificates. Here in this lab, I just want to show you the authentication, whatever port you use, TCP 22 or TCP Telnet 23. Let's now configure the remote login, and we call here line VTY. Let's create only maybe 2, and then say login authentication default. That's the one we created to use the group TACACS. And then if we exit and save, if I now go to that router, to that PC, and if I telnet to the router 192.168.21.2, then it takes me to the verification. And if I log in as admin 3, let's say admin 3, we didn't add that one in the pool in the TACACS. So if I try admin 3, then it says invalid. But if I use admin 2, then it takes me to the login page. I know the enable password, no enable password, and you can set the rest. So that's how you configure TACACS server in a simulation, and then create the clients which will authenticate to it. And that's a router here. The router will point where the TACACS server is and what key it's using. Then we create the login to the console or login from the VTY line. And so those users, the NOC admins from different places of the organization, they can connect to the devices. This is to secure your devices where only the authenticated authorized people who are meant to configure or manage or administrate the routers or the switches or your infrastructure can connect and use. If somebody leaves, you don't have to go, somebody who was managing your network, you don't have to go to every device and remove their username password. You only go to the TACACS server and you say, okay, that user is not anymore in the organization. That user will be gone, so we need to remove them. And there, if the user now tries to connect, we check the database. And if the user now tries to connect, AAA Authentication doesn't have admin 1. So let's try to connect again and say, let's exit and then provide the same IP. Now we say admin 1 and then provide the password. That doesn't exist because that user is gone. From one location, you remove their username password, and across the infrastructure, you don't have to go through every device and to remove their access. So that's a quick way to manage your infrastructure. It is authentication. Thank you for your time and see you in another video.